Peace, peace, peace. About to get started in a few. Let me know if the video gets blocked. We had an issue last week. I don't anticipate having problems this week, but never know. So if you guys can let me know which page you're watching this from, whether it's the Marie Furukweli page, my personal page, or the League of Intelligence page, just let me know so I can know if the page is working or not. Appreciate y'all. And Brother Tyrone, are you on the personal page or you on League of Intelligence? Okay. Can you do me one favor and go to my personal page and just check to see if it's flowing 100%, just to make sure everything is copacetic. All right. I'm gonna turn this down some. Peace, peace. What's going on? What's going on, Pernice? What's up, Aura? Hope everything is good. Aura, are you on my personal page? Just checking. Make sure it's good. Tyrone, will be good? Or it's not on there? Not on there?
I don't see. I want the videos.
But just like on my page, it's not like on the.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Like, hit refresh, go back to the top and see top of my page and see. Okay, Aura says she's on my page. She says she's good. Okay. All right. Aura says we're good. I think we're good then, because that's a free beat. You know, the beat they flagged me for last week, family, was what beat was that? That was Rakim. Don't sweat the technique. I tell you, man. Right, and Aura, we're not doing the room. It's just gonna be on my page. I think when I set up the initial event, it set it up as a room, and I was like, that's not what I want to do, but it's all good. We're gonna press forward. So peace, everybody. Hope everyone's good. Hope everyone's having a good week so far. Today's Tuesday. Everything is good on my end, man. Had some great news that happened to some people today. So I'm happy for them. It revitalized me, recharged me. Little bit tired, but hey, when you get news like that, I can't go into details. When you get good news, man, it's all right. Miss Marquita, how you doing? DJ, what's the word, brother? What's the word? DJ's one of the intelligent youth we have tuning in. What's up, Bomani? What's going on? Good to hear from you, man. Good to see you. We're going to talk a little bit about the Black presence in Asia. And we're going to get to that. I know it's March 1st, but it's still Black History Month. That's how we celebrate, right? Every month is Black History Month. That's what we do. You know, what did Nas say? This history don't acknowledge us, but we're going to do it. We're going to put in the work. And so Black History Month continues. We want to go from Black History Month to where we don't even need the month because it's already included in your everyday curriculum, period. Mustucky, how you doing? Brother Wally, how you doing? Peace, peace. Yeah, so we want to make this to where it's a staple. That's our next move. No more Black History Month. It's already included, period. See, look, he gets to eat Aura. He gets to eat food and relax. And listen, I'm going to eat when I finish. I promise. I'm going to eat when I finish. So Black History Month. Shout out to the students of Kent State. Shout out to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. and everyone else who celebrates and makes it a year-round thing, keeps pushing our history, our legacy, our achievements, our accomplishments. It's important to do that in a society that's built on racial inferiority. So we have to do this work. We have to reprogram our minds and identify correctly. That dictates social relationships, political relationships, economic status. Everything is contingent upon identity. So we have to go over this work. We got to do it. We got to do it. All right, I'm going to start getting into it. So we've been covering the golden age of Africa. We're talking about the history of Black folks. And no better place to start than the motherland, right? All roads lead back to the motherland, whether you are people who migrated through Asia to get to America or you built ships and sailed over here, no matter what, all roads go back to the motherland. So that's where we started. And then we got specific with the timeline. We talked about the time period before slavery. I think that's important. The time period before they came and invaded and manipulated, and some of our ancestors had chains on, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, we beat all of that. But let's understand what happened in that time period, because that gives us a good understanding and viewpoint of who we were prior to being invaded by Europeans. What were we doing? How did we live? What did we build? What type of society did we set up? What's up, Bianca? What's up, Richard? Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Positive vibes around the room. So it's important to get that perspective, to get that truth, that understanding. What's going on, Patsy? Who we were before slavery. So that's what we covered the first 3 weeks. Just did some highlights. We're highlighting here. Eventually, I want you to get inspired and get this book. This book is When We Ruled. I'll kind of make it bigger here. When We Ruled by Robert Walker. This gives you an overview of all those different kingdoms that I'm talking about. It goes in depth. Shout out to Robert Walker and his work. He's out of London, England. Outstanding piece of work. I know it's a long book, but you can get the study guide that comes with it. Get the study guide. And man, it makes it easy. You don't have to read that many pages at once. Makes it digestible. But yeah, that work. Clutch piece of work. So that's what we've been talking about. We didn't go over every single one of those. Unaga, what's good, baby? What's good? Hey, listen, Unaga, I got to get you on the court, brother. I'm just saying, I'm coming out of retirement. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, a couple of y'all brothers on here. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I won't talk about that now. I'll come back, get y'all on the court, do what I do. You know what I'm saying? But golden age. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, let's go. Golden Age. Oh, Miss Stuckey, appreciate you purchasing it. Yeah, it's a long book. Yep. That's how I started. I did the 60-day reading plan. I did that like 3 times in a row until I just knew this stuff backwards and forwards. You know what I'm saying? That was important. But yeah, Golden Age. We didn't go over all these kingdoms, but you can in that book. We highlighted some things that are important. It changes the perspective. The narratives that have been put in place that are negative towards us, it destroys all of that. If you have someone who's dealing with racial inferiority, that self-hate, that self-defeat, all those different areas, all this history destroys all of that. Period. It's gone. All you got to do is get into this knowledge, share it with your young people, teach the youth, teach the children, spread it to the adults, get this information out as best you can. So that's the information we've been going over. So now that we've covered some of the key areas on the motherland, African continent, now we're going to move over into a different space, and that's the Asian continent. And when you start talking about the Black presence in Asia, and you start talking about historians who have dedicated their lives to bringing that information to the forefront, you're going to start talking about Dr. Renuka Rashidi. Dr. Renuka Rashidi passed away recently. He is now an ancestor. We pay homage to all the work Dr. Rashidi has put in. He wrote this book. It'll be on the next screen also. Just one of his many books, African Star Over Asia, The Black Presence in the East. Outstanding book. Get this book. Understand what your ancestors built as they traveled outside of Africa into the Asian continent. They try to make us an isolated people as if we did not leave the continent except by force. That's not true. Not only did we leave the Asian continent, as you will see, we'll have some pretty telling facts to go with it to kind of give you an idea of what we've done outside of this continent via Asia. So shout out to Dr. Wanuko Rashidi, who has been a pioneer in this work, an ancestor now. We pay homage to him and his work. He's come to Charlotte a couple of times. He's been to Chucktown a couple of times. He's been all around the world building relationships. And I'm hoping that all of us collectively can continue his work because it needs to be done. Shout out to Dr. Wanuko Rashidi. So we're talking about Asia. And he was instrumental in this. I mentioned his book before, African Star Over Asia, Black Presence in the East. That's another book you should get. You're not going to get the type of detailed information about us in the Asian continent, on the Asian continent, in When We Ruled. They'll touch on it briefly. But if you want to get more in-depth and detailed, you get that book, African Star Over Asia. And I'm going to tell you it should be mandatory, right? Mandatory. This information is mandatory. Plays a huge role in what our role was in history. Who are we in human history? And this book helps to paint that picture and give us truth. So African Star Over Asia. So here we go. We're talking about the Asian continent. This is just a quick picture, pull it off the internet, kind of give us some context, get our bearings, understand what area we're talking about. We're talking about the area they call Middle East today, which is Saudi Arabia, Palestine, Turkey. You see it on your left side, all the way over to Japan, Russia, Siberia, et cetera, et cetera. Nick B, what's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. That's the area we're talking about. That area right there. Shouldn't be too much of a stretch to know or to believe that Africans crossed that Red Sea. You see that little strip right there next on the left side of Saudi Arabia. That's not a huge area to cross. So it shouldn't be too extreme for anyone to believe that Africans ventured off into Asia and populated the Asian continent. Egypt already connects to Palestine. So it shouldn't be a stretch, right? So that's the area we're going to be dealing with. And here's the screen. Anthropologist Arthur Keith is going to start us off. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and interject real quick and say that paleoanthropologist Richard Leakey, he's the one who first found the bones, the oldest bones of modern humanity in Omo, Ethiopia, of Black people. He's also the one who reports that the oldest bones you're ever going to find of modern humanity on the Asian continent are going to be found in the area of Palestine, and they're of Black people. The skeletal remains, the oldest ones ever found on the Asian continent, are of Black people. So let's combine that information with what anthropologist Arthur Keith is going to talk about real quick. He says the earliest known inhabitants of Palestine were the Natufians 10,000 years ago, and they were African people. The Natufians were African people. Let's mix in some Bible, people like that. The descendants of the Natufians, a few thousand years later, were called the Canaanites. We all recognize that word, that grouping of people, the Canaanites. Descendants of the African people who were called Natufians, the first to inhabit the area called Palestine. Excuse me, when we say Palestine, we're talking about Syria, Jordan, Israel, that whole area, Beirut. We're talking about the area right there. Palestine, first people to inhabit that area, Black folks. Oldest bones ever found in Asia come from that area, Black folks. Let's work. Ryan, what's going on, brother? Another line he says, the enigma of modern anthropology is the black belt of mankind. It commences in Africa and peters out among natives of the Melanesian islands of the Pacific. At each extremity of the belt in Africa, as in Melanesia, we find peoples with black skins, woolly hair, more or less beardless, etc., etc. And I'll take let's go. Did I put it on the next screen? No, I didn't. I'm going to back up. That black belt he's talking about goes from Saudi Arabia, just go all the way to the right, through Iran, Pakistan, India, lower parts of China. He's saying that black belt part, anywhere you go along that black belt, you're going to find Black people, period. And breaking news, Sir Arthur Keith, you're no longer with us. Breaking news, you're going to find Black people not only on the black belt, but all throughout the Asian continent. Tyrone, let's work. Let's work. So let's go to this one. Sumer and Elam. Sumer and Elam. Let's jump into Asia. We talked about Palestine. We were the first to inhabit Palestine. We have the oldest bones in Asia. Now we're talking about Sumer and Elam. You're going to find Sumer and Elam in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Iraq. Today's Iraq is where we're going. Sumer. This is the first population, the first civilization. The first civilization in Asia is Sumer, found in Mesopotamia. This is the map right here. I'm going to get more specific in a second here. There we go. Right? So those cities right there, you see in the green, Sumer is the name of this kingdom. And here's another map to get more detail, the early dynastic cities of Sumer. And this dynasty, this kingdom, these city-states are primarily majority black folks. 100%. Now, there's some controversy as to when Sumer came into existence as far as civilization. Did it come before ancient Egypt or Kemet or Ta-Seti? Most historians say no. This was probably the second or third civilization of modern man, second or third. But even if it was first, it's still black folks. There's overwhelming evidence collected in this book right here, When We Rule. There's a whole chapter dedicated to all the evidence in this area pointing to this was a black civilization. Talking about Sumer. Again, first civilization in Asia, Iraq. In other readings, it's called Chaldea. And Babylon in some other accounts. Chaldea, another name. Babylon, another name. Name of the people, Sumerians. We've heard that word before. In between the Tigris and Euphrates River, called Mesopotamia, which means land between the rivers. They built 18 city-states. You see some of them listed there. And before 1920, there was no question about the race of the Sumerians. No question. It was never brought up, never a controversial topic. It was understood that these people were black folks, people who look like you. The Chaldees were originally Negroes, Godfrey Higgins says. Another quote, the Aborigines of Babylonia were black men of the monuments, the blackheads of the Akkadian text, Gerald Massey. And again, I say there's a whole chapter in this book dedicated to the evidence that these people were black. And then more lines. Their texts, their writings refer to those two words right there. They're talking about Kemet and Ethiopia. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce them because they could be different. But Kemet and Ethiopia as their origin. So the people of that area said they came from Kemet and Ethiopia. What's going on, Otis? They came from Kemet in Ethiopia, right? Next line, look at that skull study. Skull study, skeleton remains. When the anthropologists studied those skeletal remains, those skulls, those crania, evidence suggests that those are black people. The skulls say these are black people who inhabited this area. Doesn't get any more concrete, any more solidified than studying the bones. And then last thing you said, the Sumerians called themselves black-headed people. Blackheads. Blackheads. And then a little bit more. Now that same period, I have a video I want to play. I'm trying to figure out when I want to play it, but I think I'm gonna go through a couple more screens and then I'm gonna let Dr. Wanuka Rashidi speak for it. This is the Uruk period. Same area. So now we don't just have cultures and city-states set up. Now we have kingdoms set up. And in 3300 BC, now you have the first kings of Asia. And these are black folks. This is important. Let's stop right here just for a minute. The first kings of Asia are black people. Let that sit. First kings of Asia are black people. Let's review again real quick. That means the oldest bones ever found in Asia, black people. The first inhabitants of Asia, meaning Palestine, black people. The first inhabitants of the place we call Iraq, Mesopotamia, black folks. The first civilization, Sumer, black folks. And now the first kings. Royalty is now established. Governing parties are now established. Black folks again. Understand who you are in the history of humanity, where you fit in on this. I always say this when we start talking about these classes: you're not supposed to play second fiddle to any group of people on this planet. Not only are you the original people of this planet, you've been everywhere first. There's no place a black person can go, and you'll see this as we keep talking. There's no place a black person can go and they're a stranger. Period. You've been here before. Back to it. First kings of Asia, black folks. City was called Kish. That was their main area, or excuse me, their main city that they operated out of. Give some context. Kemet, which is called ancient Egypt, is in the Middle Kingdom period, right? So when they advance to this particular stage, Kemet is at the 12th dynasty already. Even still, this particular period, they introduced writing and literacy in Asia. First people to bring writing and literacy to the Asian continent, black folks, your ancestors. Your ancestors. None of this, again, should feel like a stretch, given that we've covered the golden age over the last 3 weeks, and then understanding who black people are relative to our abilities, our achievements, our accomplishments. If there's any type of hesitation that black people can't go to another continent and establish civilization, you're dealing with an inferiority complex. Black people are more than capable of these things. The Sumerian king list mentions 23 rulers. Roman families lived in palaces, and I'm just going to kind of jump through the slide. Roman families lived in palaces. What's going on, Patrina? There's a constant battle for power in Sumer. These weren't perfect people, right? We're not painting that picture. They had some issues too between the city-states. So there were some issues there. But for the most part, very successful. And I didn't paint that picture over the golden age either. Even though all that stuff was going on, the wealth and the prosperity, there were still some issues there. We're not trying to say black people are perfect. We're definitely not painting that picture, but we were on point. That's what we were. The reports that they have about who we were and where we traveled and what we established are false. But more than what their history tells us that we are. Understand who you are in history. Let's do some more. This is the third dynasty of Ur. So we're in the same area. We're just moving our timeline up a little bit. Instead of being back 3300 BC, now we're moving up to 2700 BC, 2600 BC. And in those same conflicts I talked about, now they're in a golden age with peace and prosperity. Those same city-states have united again, and they're on point. And that code of Yunamu, that's just talking about governing statutes that are in place that cause those cities to come together and be united. And that's one of the oldest government pieces of work that you're going to see in history. It's like rock carvings, and I'll show you that in just a second. Look at that next word, Ziggurats. I believe that's how you say it. Again, I'm speaking with my American English accent. At any point in time, these pronunciations could be wrong. I'm not sure what sounds our ancestors assigned to some of these words and these letters. But ziggurats are a type of pyramid, and I'll show you that picture of that in just a second. Type of pyramid. But during this time, they had engineering, irrigation technology. They were mining gold, silver, and copper. They established great schools, flourishing in literature. You know, and the more I study black folks, whether on the African continent, Asian, Europe, Australia, the Americas, doesn't matter where you go and you find us, I'm always seeing us flourishing relative to literature, knowledge, education, and that translates into a golden age period, wherever black people went. Again, I'm not saying we're perfect, but we were on point. We were on point. They built factories, again, 2700 BC now, or BCE for those who want to say before Common Era. Built factories, leather textiles. Leather just simply means, or textiles just simply means clothing, cloth, stuff like that. And they employed 15,000 women back during those times. 15,000 women, very important. Black people usually, for the most part, set up matriarchal type societies. So you didn't see inferiority complexes with men trying to put women and label them less than. You didn't see that. You didn't see that for the most part. Again, we're not a perfect people, but our foundations were on point. All right. So I'm gonna kind of keep going for time's sake. Hope everyone's good. This is the code of Ernamu I was talking about. kind of small. You can see that it's been chiseled with the writings. This is the governing practices and statutes that were established during that time period that united black folks in that area. So they have that on display. And then this is because there are no modern ziggurats that are still not modern, but ancient ziggurats that are still up. So this is like a finished drawing illustration that they came up with on what they think the ziggurat would have looked like, pyramid-like, right? And so there were several of these all across Saudi Arabia, et cetera, built by black folks. So take a look at that. You can Google it, look it up. You'll see the base was there, but the rest of it wasn't complete or destroyed over time. So you can take a look at that. And again, we're in Iraq. We're talking about modern day Baghdad, Mesopotamia, in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And we're talking about a black civilization that started there, Sumer. Then we have to the right, you have Iran. We also have the first civilization started in Iran, talking about black folks. Again, this shouldn't be too far-fetched. Africa is just to the left. You literally can walk, right? That's what we did. We migrated over. If you cross the Red Sea, you simply crossed the Red Sea and came over. Not a stretch here. Came over to this side, started establishing things. With the first civilization in Iran, it was called Elam. Capital was Susa. Now, let me just mention this. Elam was loaded with mineral resources. A lot of resources, copper, gold, just that whole lot of stuff. And so they had issues with others trying to invade and take their stuff. Again, black people weren't perfect. I'm just simply putting it out there, right? So there was some issues that Elam had to deal with when it came to protecting their resources. So 3150 BC is what I'm talking about. First kingdom in Iran. There you see some major cities. Susa was the capital city, right? And then I kind of put in parentheses, Elam, let me get that because that's what the people wanted their resources bad. Timber, stone, iron, horses. They had a lot of stuff. So they constantly had to battle with other people trying to invade and take over and usurp authority. If you skip to the bottom, just for time's sake, you see they lasted 2,500 years. Put that in context to the United States. I believe the United States is what, 243 years old? Tyrone, check that for me. 233, something like that. So 240 something years compared to 2,500 years. Why were you able to last that long, even with some issues? Because the foundation of the people is right. And we'll talk about the type of foundation our people were built on later on down the road in these classes. So we can understand how they lasted so long. But 2,500 years is a long time. Same for Sumer, over 2,000 years that these kingdoms lasted. So that's just a brief overview of Palestine, Iraq, Iran. They call Iraq and Iran Persia, by the way. That's also called Persia. So the black presence in those areas. Now we have Arabia. So just below Jordan, Iraq, all those areas, we have Arabia. Today's Saudi Arabia, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Bahrain, those areas there, black folks. Now, if you look to the left of the Red Sea, there's Sudan, there's Ethiopia. Listen, not a stretch to believe that Africans simply crossed over the Red Sea and started civilization. It's not hard. Not a stretch here. Not a stretch. So here we are. Arabia Felix, which means happy Arabia. Yeah, those three countries that I mentioned, Africans inhabited Arabia, have been there since at least 6,000 BC, just kind of based on some archaeological evidence. All right, so we know at least 6,000 BC. First civilization in that area, Saba, known to many as Sheba. And if you think Sheba, you'll think the Queen of Sheba, which is Makeda, or Belkis in that area. That's how the Arabs remember her, Belkis, around 1005 BC. So the first civilization in this area, again, black folks, extensive trade network. And keep in mind, let me mention this too. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but from Palestine to Saudi Arabia to Iran, Iraq, over to Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, over into China and Southeast Asia, All of that, according to Greek and Ethiopian writers, was considered Ethiopia. All of that. Why? Because they're black people. Everywhere you went in those areas, you saw black people. And so it was called Ethiopia by the Greeks and by everyone else. What's going on, Kanan? Weez, what's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, so we're just going over this information. So that's important to understand and recognize. Check out that next line that I have highlighted in white by Alexander the Greek. Notice I didn't say the Great. Alexander the Greek. You're not great when you go in other countries and kill them all. Ain't nothing great about that. Shout out to Amos. So they are the richest nation in the world. Recognized. Talking about your people in Saudi Arabia. We saw the golden age, what we created over there. Not a stretch to understand that when we go here, we do the same thing. Richest nation in the world. Also solidified, certified by Herodotus and other Greek writers and European writers that you see there. Richest in the world. Right? Then we have the Awan Temple. We won't talk about that right now. I have to come back to that. The Gundam Castle, which is no longer, it's in ruins. But at the time, they're reporting that it was 20 stories high, according to some accounts. 20 stories high. All right? We won't worry about the bottom line there. There's a lot to unpack with those two lines, even though it is minute. There's a lot to unpack with all those. When we get into a full class period, we'll deal with all of that. Just want to highlight some of the things, the black presence in Asia. All right, appreciate everyone joining us too. We're just going right through it, talking about our ancestors and where they've been. They try to say we didn't leave the African continent. That's bogus. Here we are making things work. They need to change these history books. Here we go to the Indus Valley now, right? So we dealt with Palestine. We dealt with Saudi Arabia. Now we're over in Iran. We dealt with that. Now we're going to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. Let's work. Let's work. Indus Valley. When you start talking about Indus Valley and the civilizations we built there, you're primarily going to start with Pakistan. So there's an Indus River in Pakistan, right? Go to the next screen here. Indus River. So you have the Indus Valley civilization. This is talking about black folks. This area was also called Ethiopia. At Ethiopia's height, they were huge. They covered two continents, Africa and Asia. Indus Valley. So the heart of the Indus Valley civilization was Pakistan and Western India. You see the major cities listed there. They first had early villages, 6,000 to 7,000 BC, talking about black folks. 2895 BC had the mature period, meaning technology, civilization is starting to advance. Everything's starting to move. Look at that next line. No evidence of internal warfare. We're talking about people of peace, people who knew how to resolve conflicts maturely, right? Conflict resolution is a big area in our big issue with our people, especially with our maladjusted characteristics that we've been socialized to have. A lot of pride, a lot of ego, a lot of lack of patience that they've been able to socialize in us. But here, no evidence of internal warfare. Look at the city comment by Dr. Wayne Chandler talking about their cities. And Dr. Wayne Chandler wrote an excellent book called Ancient Future. You get a chance, look up Dr. Wayne Chandler's book, Ancient Future. Outstanding book. Right? He said, unlike Russia and Ukraine. I hear you. The most striking aspect of these city ruins is their undisputed evidence of sophisticated planning. We're talking about black folks. Built in a grid-like fashion with a large main street, it seems almost the minute version of Manhattan Island. That's the kind of comparison Dr. Wayne Chandler is talking about with your ancestors thousands of years ago on the Asian continent. On the Asian continent. I'm not sure how y'all take all this, but let me tell you something. When I first read this stuff, Tyrone, listen, I was hyped. I mean, hyped. Like I let it change how I saw myself. I let it change how I saw my people, black people, right? I let it cancel out all the negativity that racism tries to impart in our minds, that mental slavery. It's just good to read about with evidence to back it up, right? No one's making this stuff up to feel good and have some emotional kick. No, this is the evidence. This is what happened. This is what it is. Let's go, Miss Marquita, right? Let's do some more. Main boulevards, 35 feet wide. We're talking about the Indus Valley civilization, the cities they built. Avenues, shops, restaurants lined with streets, a granary, citadel, a great bath. The great bath was 20 by 40 feet, 8 feet deep. 8 feet deep. They try to say we're dirty. We're building giant baths. And then look at the engineering feat on that bottom line there. Could not be improved upon by any modern builder. Talking about the bath is what they're talking about. After 5,000 years, it still holds water. Engineering skills. When we build something, it lasts. That's why the pyramid's still up. But we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. Black people doing what we do. Doing what we do. Last line on the Indus Valley. Look at the houses. And I make sure to always mention the houses, no matter what kingdom we're talking about. If we have the information, I make sure we share it so we can understand the standard of living. Because they try to paint the picture that the conditions we see our people living in now is reflective of who we are. And that's not true. See, if you believe that's who you are, and that's just our culture relative to living in ghettos and poor conditions, you won't fight. You won't recognize the forces that are putting us in those positions. You'll just think it's all on you. So we try to paint the picture with our history. Everywhere we went, how did we live? So you can understand that's your real culture. That's who you are. The conditions you see now were brought upon by oppression, period. So we have to investigate how exactly are they getting us to court, or how they're corralling us into these ghetto areas in every single city across the United States. We're actually covering that information now in our Thursday class, Stop the Violence. We're at the section now where we're figuring out how do you create ghetto-like conditions? How are they able to do this across the nation? We're discovering a lot of key information and a lot of key players on how they get Black people to live in those conditions now. But look how we lived even back then, thousands of years ago. Houses, mansions, 2 stories, built with look at that, central courtyard, chutes to dispose waste, bathroom drain pipes, come on, talk, a central sewer system. This is thousands of years ago. This is BCE. The high quality of the sanitary arrangements and that particular city could well be envied in many parts of the world today. That's the kind of standard we have. Look on the bottom there, agriculture, domesticated dogs, cats, cattle, buffalo, horses, trade network with Mesopotamia and Afghanistan. We're talking about what Indus Valley had. Manufacturing cotton. We had copper, gold, timber, turquoise, the jewelry, the language that they have written on some of the artifacts is still undeciphered. So when we decipher that, we'll get a even more detailed understanding on how things were set up during that time period. And then you'll see that bottom part. We don't have time to go into it. But in 1800 BC, you see the Aryan Invasion. We're talking about Indo-Europeans coming from the north, coming from the area now called Russia. And now that's Siberian part, the Eurasian steppes, and coming into the Indus Valley and invading that particular area. And you see, it took them 1,000 years to succeed, right? Say a word, Richard, technology isn't a new thing. That's right. It took them 1,000 years to eventually overtake your ancestors in the Indus Valley. And I will say this, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I will say the first time you see spiritual manipulation used on a people is when the Aryans used it on our people in the Indus Valley. What do I mean by spiritual manipulation? I'm talking about claiming that God spoke ill of another group of people, meaning he cursed Black people. And they put that in something called the Law of Manu, M-A-N-U, the Law of Manu, which is part of Hinduism. I want you to Google that, look that up. You'll find more information on that in Wayne Chandler's book, Ancient Future. Dr. Wayne Chandler's book, Ancient Future. He has a whole breakdown. The Law of Manu is the first time you see a group of people saying, God said, you're cursed. First time you see it. And then that becomes the social order. So now you take Black people and women who are considered cursed, you put them on the bottom of society. And I believe India still operates according to the racial caste system to this day. That was the first time you saw racism used as a social order, when the Aryans invaded that area and put those stipulations in place using spiritual manipulation. God said this. Law of Manu. God said this and put it into place. So the first time you see spiritual manipulation wasn't in Africa, because they weren't in Africa yet. They came to this area first, established that type of racial order, spiritual manipulation, sexism, misogyny, and then brought it over, eventually over time, into the African continent. So Africa wasn't the first place you saw it. Knowledge is power. If only our ancestors, besides Ethiopia, would have understood who Europeans were, we could have avoided a whole lot. The world would be a different place right now. But I'll get off of that and keep moving. Here we go. So we've dealt with that Middle Eastern area, which is still Asia, called Middle East by the Westerners. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, all of that. They were moved into Iraq and Iran, moved over to Afghanistan and Pakistan, into India. Now we're going to go into China and Southeast Asia. Let's work. The black presence in Asia. Black people left the African continent and put in work. Look at this. First line, China. Some years ago, Chinese scientists tried to establish that they were the first people on the planet. They tried to establish that they are the original human beings, had a whole scientific experiment set up. They had to discontinue the experiment because they found out, the more they studied, watch out now, they found out that all their DNA traces back to where? The African continent and black folks. And now we have this particular statement now. Most of the population of modern China, who is 1/5 of all the people living today, owes its genetic origins to Africa. The Chinese know, whether they acknowledge it full tilt or not, they have to discontinue the experiment, and they know from where they come from. We derived, mutated, whatever word you want to use, from black folks, period. As a matter of fact, look at the next line. The Shang dynasty. That's China's first dynasty, right? 1766 BC, according to the records. That was black people. Black people made up the Shang dynasty. China's first. Their foundation starts with black folks. Now, I'm not sure how you feel about that right now. Maybe that goes against some of the information and propaganda that was introduced to us to paint a different type of picture. But they said the truth makes you free. It was just interesting to me to research that, how China tried to establish that and then have to discontinue, finding out, oh, we can't do it because the further back we go, the blacker we get. All right, I'm going to get off of that. Those other two dynasties too, those are also black folks in China, Tang and the Yuan. And notice the time periods for those two. This is AD. So this is not too long ago. So while we were studying the Golden Age, which is the period right before slavery, if you went from there into China, you would have found the Tang dynasty. You'd have found the Yuan dynasty, and you would have saw black folks because those are black people. Then if you went further south from China into Cambodia, you would have saw black civilizations. If you went into Vietnam, you would have saw black civilizations. You had the Chinla, the Angkor, and the Champa during that time period. So while we were studying the Golden Age, time period before slavery, if you went into China, you saw black people. And if you went into Cambodia and Vietnam, you would have saw black kingdoms. That's what you would have saw. Let's work. Right? So you have the High Thai, and I could be pronouncing that wrong. Not clear on the pronunciation, but that means black emperor. That was the word used in the Chinla kingdom for their emperor. According to Chinese records, the kingdom of Lin Yi, it means land of black men. And they were actually talking about the kingdom of Champa. And then look at the next line. Chinese records. It says, for the complexion of men, they consider black the most beautiful. In all the kingdoms of the southern region, it is the same. Everywhere you went, this was the perspective on black, the most beautiful. Obviously, times have changed. Another group has come along with a different type of idea and spread that idea everywhere, causing oppression and murder and rape and enslavement to occur to all kinds of people who look like us. But before that garbage, racism type idea came along, this was what it was. And I don't have the exact reference, but in the Arabic records, it's the same thing. They said that the Arabs who were not black used to try to rub tar on their skin to become black, because they said a true Arab was black. That's what they said. You'll find, matter of fact, you'll find that information in Dr. Rashidi's book, African Star Over Asia. You'll find that information in this book. Right? I'm gonna go to the next one. So this is Angkor. Angkor is found in Cambodia. You see this here. Some of what your ancestors built, and you'll say, well, wait a minute, black people built that? We'll get to it. We'll get to it. There's another picture of it there. Or another, it's not the exact picture, I'm sorry, but the different type of kingdoms within Cambodia that we built. Take a look at that one. I think the last two pictures are the same, these two. Take a look at that. And then on the side, the inscriptions on the sides of these buildings, this is what you see. Let me enlarge it a little bit. This is what you see. Now, y'all tell me, what these people look like. You tell me, right? Buddy on the elephant. Is this a black man or not? You tell me. Tyrone, you see it? I'm just, all right. I'm just saying. Sometimes you don't need a lot of documents. You can just look at what was created on the artwork, on the building itself. William, what's going on, brother? Yeah, man. Your ancestors did a lot, man. They were everywhere. So we went from Saudi Arabia, Palestine, that area, all the way over into China. The only thing I didn't cover was Japan, but I have something special for Japan. So I'm not going to get into Japan necessarily today. But all throughout Asia, these are just highlights. Again, these are just highlights. There's a whole lot more information to be found in this book here. There's some highlighted information in When We Ruled. Like, these are great books. Get that book, Ancient Future, by Dr. Wayne Chandler. Whole lot of information to get. These are just highlights. I want you to understand who you were in human history, your lineage, where you come from, the stock that you have, the DNA that's in you, blood that's running through your veins. This is important. Look at yourself different if you haven't already. Some of you have already seen some of this information before, right? Tell this to your young people, to the children. Spread this information. Any brother or sister that you think doesn't know, spread this information so we can start to see ourselves different. And when people talk to us in a certain way, we ain't having it. You got to talk to me different. The talk is different, they say in battle rap, Easy to Block Captain. The talk is different when you get your knowledge, when you get your information. We got some more to do. Hold on. So these are the books right here. These are the books. African Star Over Asia, When We Ruled. And I lined up some pictures, just some more pictures that I got from this book here. And there's a whole lot more in there, right? So when it says Africoid faces from the Bayun, that's talking about Angkor. That's that kingdom that was built in Cambodia. So remember when I showed you the black man on the elephant? This is some more images from that particular building structure, right? And here's some more. Another one. I mean, sometimes it's just right in front of your face. Sometimes it's just right there. Don't need to explain it too much. It's right there. Boom. Right? Black presence in Asia. Let's work. Another one. This is the Buddha. This is Buddha. You tell me. That's all. Buddha. We got some more. This is Shiva. Shiva. Notice how the nose is knocked off. Now, Dr. Rashidi was researching that. He wasn't quite sure why they were doing it. I have my own theory on why they knock off the noses. But that's one. Here's another one. Another depiction of Buddha. You tell me. Another depiction of Buddha. Another depiction of Buddha, a seated statue of Buddha, as it says. Again, you'll find these. Dr. Renuka Rashidi spent his life gathering this information. You'll find it in this book right here. The Black presence in Asia, not just Africa, in Asia. Another depiction of the Buddha. Shout out to you, Bomani. Here's another one. Here's another one. Black folks. Everywhere you went. Well, here's another one. This is Biggie Smalls' ancestor, obviously. Indian god of wealth. Right? Here's a painting. Here's a painting of the city, a city notable. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right either, but these were African people, black folks in India, black people of India. So that's a painting of them. Another one, black man in early Persia. Black man in early Persia. Remember, Persia's Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, that area, Persia. Another photo from Dr. Renuka Rashidi's book. Young sister, warrior. I think it's a sister. I could be wrong. In Afghanistan. Might not be. Tamara, what's going on? More recent picture. Black man in India. In India. Another one. Coming from South India again. You'll find these pictures in this book right here. African Star over Asia. Shout out to the ancestor, Dr. Renuka Rashidi, putting in work. And that's it. That's all I had as far as, actually, I do have something else. I have this that I wanted to give you before we get in the question and answer, because I wanted to give Brother Renuka Rashidi his just due. And I'm going to let y'all hear some of this just very quickly, and you tell me what you think. Let me pause the music here. Here we go.
To see African or any history clearly, you must remove the archaic attitude of 18th and 19th century Western colonialism. Then, if you choose to look at world history differently, you start to see startling information. African researcher, Renuka Rashidi.
So even in the westernmost extension of Asia, you have an African element. You have the African element that we spoke about in China and Japan. But you also have this huge group of black people in India, where they still remain today. Most of them are called Dravidians. And then also it's very important to point out that the first civilization that anybody can clearly identify in Asia is called Sumer. Wow. Took place in Iraq. And if you looked at it on a map, you could trace it from the base of the Persian Gulf north to the city of Baghdad, about a distance of 300 miles. Now, this is the first civilization in Asia. Some people would argue it's the first civilization in the world. I don't believe that. I'm sure that the Egyptian civilization is, or Tasseti, or the Nile Valley civilization. Right. But I guess it's become a standard racist argument that civilization begins in Sumer. But even if it did begin in Sumer, you're still talking about black people. Wow. The Sumerians called themselves the black-headed people to distinguish themselves from all other people.
Doesn't that simply mean they're here?
No. It said black-headed, and you could argue that point, but then you have to put it in conjunction with other things. Now, the skeletal remains have been removed from most of the major royal cemeteries in early Sumer. For example, you have one in a city called Ur, that's mentioned in the Bible as Ur the Chaldees. That's where Abraham is supposed to have come from. You have them in a place called Ubad. You have them in a place called Uruk. You have them in Jimnit Nasser. You have them in a place called Kish. Now, all these major skeletal remains are identical with the skeletal remains of African people in other parts of Africa, particularly Egypt. And we know the Egyptians were black. We know that they were black people because their oldest deity in Sumer was known as Anu. Anu was a name that you find with thriving black populations all over the world. For example, the Nubians or the Sudanese people that produced the Egyptian civilization call themselves the Anu Seti. In Egypt, you have a group of people called the Anu. The earliest Egyptians are called Anu, A-N-U. Even in Arabia, you have the Anu. So you have these Anu populations wherever you find black people. You have the fact that they worship female goddesses. This is totally unlike European and Mongoloid civilizations because their emphasis was patriarchal. In Africa, you have a matriarchal, a matrilineal philosophy. So you have the skeletal remains, which are identical to other African people. You have the fact that they call themselves the black-headed people to distinguish themselves from other people. You have eyewitness accounts of people that went to Sumer and described these people as having black skins and woolly hair. You have the worship of female deities. You have the oldest deity being Anu, and you go on and on. Now, you could probably argue with either one of those points individually, but when you put those together as a body of evidence, there's no doubt that those are black people there. And they may not have been the whole population, but in terms of the governing body, the people that ran things,
They were there.
they were the dominant group. They were the royalty in ancient Sumer. You find the same thing in Iran. You find it in Afghanistan. You find evidences of black people as far away as Siberia.
Rashidi also believes the first people to settle the Americas wore black skin.
What? We'll talk about that on your next episode. Yeah. So shout out to Dr. Wanuko Rashidi. We're going to get into that, the Americas, next week. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Any questions that I can try to answer before we get out of here. But shout out to the ancestor, Dr. Wanuko Rashidi, a pioneer with recovering this information relative to our presence in Asia. Man, he was a gem, man. He was a gem. Now, let me just speak on that particular series that you saw, which is part of that video you saw is part of a giant series called African American Culture, A Second Look. African American Culture, A Second Look. I will pay money, Tyrone, I will pay money to anybody who can get me the full series. I've been looking for a long time now, probably over a year, maybe over 2 years at this point, trying to find the full series of African American Culture, A Second Look. Somebody had the series all loaded up on YouTube at one point, but then that person's YouTube channel was flagged and taken down, and I wasn't able to get all those videos, but that whole series is absolute fire. Dr. Clark is on there. Dr. Hilliard is on there. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima is on there. I mean, she goes through, when I say she, the moderator, Marty Chitwood is her name. And yeah, there you go, William. African American Culture, A Second Look. You can find me that series. I'm going to pay you money. I'm telling you right now. No hesitation. I got my debit card ready. Cash App ready. You find me that whole series, you're going to get paid. I need that. Someone get me that series, man. African American Culture, A Second Look. So that's where that clip came from. And there was a clip before that where they're breaking down the black presence in Japan. That the Japanese historian is breaking it all down, but that video got lost when that channel got taken off. So, but if anyone can find that, man, I'd really appreciate that. Like I said, a cash reward, for anybody. But does anyone have any questions that they want to ask? I know there's a delay between when I say it and when you actually type the question, so I'll give it a few. Kayla can get it. Listen, Aura, if Kayla gets this, she's gotten a lot for me. You ain't lying. She has found some books that I thought, well, that's that, and she has found them. So, if Kayla can find this series, woo-wee. That's hype. Matter of fact, I need to call her back anyway, so I'm gonna do that and let her know that what I'm looking for. But yeah, any questions? anything like that, you can post them. It's no problem. I'll answer those. If not, we're going to get ready for next week. And next week, it's kind of broken off. As you can see, the upload didn't go right. But the Black presence in the Americas, right? So we've talked about Black folks before slavery on the African continent. We've seen what your ancestors did there. Then we just now highlighted what your ancestors did on the Asian continent, right? And now let's go ahead and deal with the Americas. I skipped Europe because I don't care about Europe, really, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't care. We went to Europe, we did some things. We'll talk about that later. Let's skip that and go to the, you know what I'm saying? How did we get here? Now, I'm gonna tell you, there's so much to unpack when it comes to Black people in the Americas prior to 1492. There's a lot there. So I'm not gonna get into everything. We're gonna highlight some stuff, real easy to do. And then I'll give you some book references. And then I'm probably going to come back again, not this month, but down the line, because there's some books I need to get into a little bit more that uncover even more of our presence here in the Americas prior to anybody else. So just be prepared. But like I said, Black presence in the Americas is next week. We're going to go in. We're going to get busy, put some work in. You know what I'm saying? Do what we need to do. Appreciate everybody for coming through, for watching. Next time, please bring a friend. Miss Marquita, I appreciate you. DJ, I know you're a young person at Piedmont. Hope he didn't bore you too much, but look at your ancestors, brother. See that? Your ancestors were on point. We're on point. Tell the young people, tell the children, spread it to your neighbor, tell everybody. Spread the word, right? The Mormons take 2 years, get on bicycles with their little white shirts and the tie, and they tell everybody about their Mormon religion. We need to do the same for us, though. Tell everybody about our history and where we come from and our greatness. It'll change the mindset of our people. Marcus Garvey said we have to emancipate from mental slavery, get those chains off. And no one can do that but us. But us. So I'm challenging you to tell some people about it. Give them a video. Give them some type of book. Do something. And let's get our people back where we need to be on a higher level of human life and restored back to our traditional greatness. All right. Appreciate y'all. Let's work. Catch y'all next week. All right.